Hey everybody, Captain B-Nard here with your BHDL1 Week 4 recap and Week 5 preview. So again, I'm going to assume everyone watching this video also watched the weekly battle video, and we're just going to get right to it. So, our opponent this week was RK9er slash Jesse, strong competitive battler I don't believe we've ever played before. I did forget to mention that going into this game, we were coming in at a 2-1 record, whereas my opponent was coming in at a 1-2 record. And we did end up getting the win this week 2-0, but it was a very close, very competitive, very intense game. Could have gone either way, in my opinion, and just an all around solid one. So, having said that, we're just going to go ahead and jump right over to the team preview screen. So there you can see the teams we brought to this game. His team on the right-hand side, my team on the left-hand side, obviously. So as you can see, he brought the Roaring Moon, the Iron Treads, the Mimikyu, the Star Raptor, the Electros, and the Greninja. So one thing that I did say, and I will say it again because I still feel that way, that really surprised me about his team was that he did not bring Espeon to the battle this week. So I was really heavily anticipating Espeon this week because I feel like it has a really good matchup against my team on paper, specifically against two of my top tier threats, the Hawlucha and the Iron Moth. As Espeon has super effective stab coverage for both of them. It can also set screens, which can hinder my ability to set up for a potential sweep. So, yeah, I was very shocked that he didn't bring Espeon. Still am. But I was very happy to not see the Espeon at that, as that definitely made my life a little bit better. So, but other than that, no real surprises on his side. Everything else that he brought, I was kind of anticipating. Looking at my team, I did bring the Wigglytuff, the Gastrodon, the Hawlucha, the Pink Urchin, the Orthworm, and the Iron Moth. So, I know a couple of you were wondering why I didn't bring Gudra to the game this week. That is kind of the only notable omission to my top picks and/or standard Pokemon that I bring. And so the reason for that, quite simply, is I felt Gudra had a pretty poor matchup this week, actually, specifically versus his Roaring Moon and his Mimikyu, which were two Pokemon that I was pretty certain he was going to bring. So unfortunately, Gudra just kind of gets outsped in one shot by both of those Pokemon. So I really didn't think that it had a very good time this week, Gudra. So that's why I decided to not bring it. But other than that, no real huge surprises on my side either, I don't think. Although I guess I am kind of surprised myself about how often I've brought Wigglytuff this season so far. I wasn't expecting bringing it as much as I have, but yeah, that's just a little aside. So, yeah, having said that, we're going to go ahead and go over to our weekly pros and cons. So as you can see, no folks, this is not a typo. I have only weekly pros for you guys this week. I have no cons this week, and I will get into why in well, right now, actually. So, obviously, the big pro of the week here is that we did win the game 2-0. So, obviously, that is going to be the big pro of the week because while we are trying to create some fun, interesting content for you guys, our big goal is to make playoffs this season. And obviously, every victory we achieve gets us that much closer to getting a playoff spot. So, that is always going to be the big pro of the week. When we win, if we can win, hopefully. So yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. Other pros of the week include I feel like both myself and my opponent played very well this game. Um, Looking back over the battle, there really weren't many, if any, points in the game that I thought that either of us made misplays, and even in some instances where you might consider something a misplay, it's kind of like a misplay in hindsight, maybe. Nothing super egregious or really terrible on either side. I struggle to even think of very many good examples of that. The only one that I can really think of is on my side, actually. at one point in the game where I had Gastrodon in versus his Greninja, and I was pretty confident that he was choice locked with the Greninja, and he was choice locked into Surf, I believe. So I knew he was going to be switching out, obviously, with Gastrodon having the immunity to water. So I decided to go for the Stealth Rock here because I knew that upon switching in next time, his uh, Star Raptor would go down as well. Next time he would bring the Greninja in, it would be one turn of poison damage away from going down. So I decided to go for the Stealth Rock when, in hindsight, I probably should have just gone for an attack because I probably should have assumed he was going to bring the Star Raptor in. But yeah, I can't even really call that a misplay because it was just kind of a judgment call that I made, a hope that I had. And yeah, just little stuff like that that you, again, in hindsight, you could say you could do it differently, but nothing really big or crazy, honestly. I thought that uh, pretty much through and through, we both played very well, made solid predictions, had solid sets, solid teams, and everything was just really solid through and through, honestly. Um, that which kind of feeds into my next pro of the week, which is there were basically no hacks this entire game, which was actually pretty shocking because this game lasted for well over 30 minutes, I believe it was. So, um, I think the only hack the entire game, if I'm remembering this correctly, was when he got a flamethrower burn on my Gastrodon with his Electros. I think that was pretty much the only hack the whole game, and that ended up being inconsequential because we were able to keep Gastrodon healthy the whole game. So all it really did was cancel the leftovers recovery. So yeah, while at the time it seemed like it could potentially play a factor, looking back on the game, it really didn't play a factor. So yeah, that was really nice that we had a very clean game through and through with no hacks, basically no hacks, none that really mattered, I should say. And that will bring us to our last pro of the week, which is Hawlucha's redemption story. So I'm sure all of you remember, because it wasn't that long ago, back in week two, how we ended up losing our week two game via an ice beam freeze on our Hawlucha, which ended up costing us the match just a couple turns after it happened. So yeah, this week Hawlucha had its time to shine. It had its time for redemption in the form of late game. So in the late game, my opponent had Mimikyu in. It was terrestrialized into a pure ghost type, and he had the Swords Dance up, so he had +2 physical attack. And so we bring the Hawlucha in, which is terrestrialized into a dark type at this point. And after the Stealth Rock and other damage it's taken throughout the game, it's sitting at a little under 50% health. So we know we should outspeed him in this situation, so we know he has to go for the Shadow Sneak. So sure enough, he goes for the Shadow Sneak. It is Terra boosted and Swords Dance boosted, and it is resisted as well from the Hawlucha, although Hawlucha does not have the best defenses. So he goes for the Shadow Sneak, and Hawlucha does hang on in the red with 5 HP, does survive the attack, and in turn goes for a Terra Blast Dark to take out the Mimikyu. So this was huge because after this turn, it essentially sealed our victory in the game, because after we take out the Mimikyu in that situation, it's down to 3-on-1. We have the Hawlucha and the Iron Moth, which are essentially on their last legs, but then also the Gastrodon at basically full HP, and all he has left is the Greninja that is poisoned and on its last legs. So essentially, Greninja is going to go down to after taking 2 more rounds of poison damage, and so obviously in a singles game, it's not really possible to KO 3 Pokemon in 2 turns. So mathematically, we did have the game won at that point. So thanks to Hawlucha being able to survive that Shadow Sneak and take the Mimikyu out in return with a Terra Blast Dark. So Hawlucha really came in clutch for us this game, and it really even though it didn't get the KO, the final KO really earned us the victory in this game. So, like I said, this is essentially Hawlucha's redemption this week, and I was very happy about that because obviously the in the prior week, a couple of weeks ago, I should say, having that unfortunate situation with Hawlucha getting frozen was pretty shitty. So it was cool to be able to for Hawlucha anyway to be able to kind of get some back there. So, but yeah, as I said, also for this week there are no weekly cons. So the reason for that is because, quite honestly, I did go over this game. I watched this game back. I thought about it a lot, and I really couldn't come up with anything, believe it or not, for cons for this game, because this was just a very competitive, very solid, very well played game on both ends, I think. Um, there really wasn't any con that I could think of for this week. I think, all in all, this was the cleanest game that I've had in this league thus far. So I really don't have any cons about it. It was just, again, I know I keep saying the same thing over and over again, but it was just a very solid game through and through. Well played, no hacks. We got the win. And yeah, I really don't have anything negative to say about it. So hats off to my opponent for such a great match, honestly. But moving along after that, that is going to get us to something new this week on the weekly recap, and that is going to be transactions. So I actually decided to go ahead and make my first transactions of the season here post week 4, and here they are. So, first thing I decided to do was drop Barrascuda off the team. Now, you may have noticed that over the past 4 weeks, we have not brought Barrascuda to a single game, and so there are reasons for that, which I will get into here. Um, so, and they all kind of lead to the same place. So, originally, I drafted Barrascuda onto this team. It was a late draft pick, and because I had a bunch of points left over, I decided to go up to 11 draft picks this season. And I decided to add Barrascuda for a couple of reasons. One, because I wanted something that was fast and could hit on the physical side, and two, because I knew that there was a pretty solid rain team that had been created by another coach in this league. So obviously Barrascuda has access to Swift Swim, so I felt like if I ended up in a game with that coach, that Barrascuda could be a possible bring that could really help me out, kind of use the rain against him. However, after the draft, we did get our schedule for the whole season revealed, and it turns out that I actually do not play that coach in the regular season here, so that instantly kind of dropped Barrascuda's value for me. In addition, after playing these last 4 weeks here in the league, I kind of came to the conclusion that based on the rest of my team composition, there was pretty much no scenario that I was going to bring Barrascuda to a game, even looking forward to the rest of my opponents for the rest of the regular season. It just, I didn't see a situation where I would be bringing Barrascuda at all. So that's why I decided to go ahead and drop it. And so, with that and the extra points that we had available, we decided to go ahead and pick up Slow King. So, Slow King is obviously a very bulky Pokemon, hits decently hard on the special side too. Obviously, the Water Psychic dual typing is pretty good offensively and defensively. And I basically added Slow King because I wanted to add another water type to the team, another bulky water type to give myself a little more variety in potential tanks that I could bring. Additionally, Slowking is one of only two Pokemon, the other being Galarian Slowking, that gets access to Chilly Reception this generation, which is a brand new move in Scarlet and Violet that is essentially Teleport plus Snowscape put together. So it pivots you out and sets the Snowstorm, not in that order. So yeah, that was a pretty huge. That's a pretty huge thing in case I run into any weather, which I don't believe I play any more weather-based teams in the regular season. But I did, looking at the rest of my matchups this season, I did see more opportunities to potentially bring Slowking to a battle than I did with Barrascuda. So that's why I decided to go ahead and make that move. Um, I can't say that Slowking will come every week. Obviously, it won't. I can't say how many weeks it might come, if at all. But it's definitely another strong option to add to the team, I think. So that is kind of the thought process behind that. So welcome aboard, Slowking, to the team, and we'll see what if anything it's going to do for us this season. So But yeah, the other moves we made here are we decided to remove our Terra Captain status from our canine and add it to Orthworm and Pincurchin instead. So this might seem like a little bit of an odd move on paper, but I'm going to explain why I did this. So initially, I made our canine my Terra Captain, one of my two Terra Captains on my team, because obviously Terra Normal extreme speeds are really, really strong, and that is a pretty premier thing that our canine can do. However, again, based on the team composition that I have this season, Arcanine is not a Pokemon that I really bring regularly to battles. I believe I've only brought it once in the 4 weeks that I've played so far. I'm sure I will bring it a few more times this season, but again, it's not a Pokemon that comes every week. So after thinking about this for quite some time, I decided I wanted to give it a shot and give the Terra Captain status to some Pokemon that I'm going to bring most weeks, and those are obviously the Orthworm and the Pincurchin. Because obviously, having Terra Normal, Arcanine, Extreme Speeds, all that good stuff is great, but if I don't bring Arcanine, it's not really doing anything for me. So again, with the team composition being what it is, Orthworm and Pink Urchin are much more likely brings, I think, on my team most weeks than the Arcanine. So that's kind of the thought process behind making that move. I am still a little torn about it because obviously Arcanine's a really strong Pokemon. So having it as a Terra Captain is really strong. But I decided to just kind of give this a try and see where it goes. So that's kind of the thought process behind that and where we are with that. So so those are the moves post week 4 heading into week 5 for the Philadelphia Pidgeys, and hopefully they will benefit us greatly. So, but we'll see what happens with that. No like super huge changes, I don't think, to the team composition, but some notable stuff that might potentially benefit us in the future, and hopefully it will. So, speaking of week 5, that is going to feed us into, of course, our opponent for week 5, and that is going to be Scorpion, big N at the end there, not a typo. Yeah, and so here you can see a snapshot of his team right here. And yeah, it looks to be incredibly strong, incredibly well put together, as most of the teams in this league are. But this team is going to be, I think, especially hard to break. He has a lot of premier high point value Pokemon that are not only very strong offensive threats, but some that are very strong defensive threats too. So, of course, he has the Great Tusk, the King Gambit, that are obviously like very premier threats. Of course, he has the Iron Leaves and the Rotom Wash, which are also very strong threats as well. Um, he's even got other stuff, more value pickups like the Moltres, the Bun, the Magnezone, even the Venomoth, which could obviously wreak havoc. So this is a very well put together team, very strong team. So I think it's going to be definitely another very difficult week for us in the league. Obviously, I'm working on what kind of strategy I can use to tackle this thing, although not going to say it at this point because don't want to shoot myself in the foot. Um, but yeah, it's definitely going to be hard to prep for this team because it's very solid through and through, and yeah, we'll just kind of have to do our best and hope for the best going up against this team. As well, this guy is another very strong competitive battler that I don't believe we've ever faced before. So, but yeah, we'll just kind of have to see where that goes, and hope for the best. As of now, as I kind of mentioned before, the Pidgeys are sitting at a 3-1 record right now, as we are about halfway through the season. So, really hoping that we can keep that momentum going into the coming weeks here, and hopefully secure ourselves a playoff spot here in the BHDL1. So, but that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching again, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, and/or subscribe if you did enjoy, and stay tuned for more new videos in the future. So, that's it, and we'll see you next time.